This past weekend, we got to see the brand new LA Thieves super team compete alongside one another in Kaysan's LAN tournament. The Thieves were one of 4 teams to be invited to this tournament. Alongside them was OpTic Gaming, FaZe, and Cloud9. It was a double elimination LAN tournament where the winning team would earn $50,000. The LA Thieves ended up playing 4 matches before being able to close out the tournament with the victory. The Thieves started off the tournament facing off against Atlanta FaZe. As we all know, Atlanta FaZe is still the same team from last year, whereas obviously the Thieves are a whole new team. There were a little bit of expectations, I would say, kind of going into this tournament. Obviously, there's not a lot of practice that has been done. There were no LAN experience for anybody when it comes to this new Black Ops 6 game, but with the new roster that the Thieves had, they're really expected to be a high-level team. And when you're going up against a team like FaZe, this is the perfect time to prove that. And to start things off, the Thieves didn't look so hot. Now, I did a watch party on this. I did it with Jake Maverick. Shout out to Jake. And during the first 2 maps, they didn't look so hot. Like, they look a little discombobulated. And naturally, I wasn't too worried because, like we said, this is the first time the Thieves are playing in a LAN environment together with this new squad, going up against a team that just won EWC and, for the most part, has been together for a while outside of Draza. So, with the Thieves losing their first map 250 to 180 and then their second map 6 to 1, I figured, okay, that's all right. Like, we got to get our reps in. We got to get things figured out. And, we ended up hearing later that the Thieves really didn't have a lot of time scrimming going into the tournament. So this was kind of a new thing for them. They really just looked like they were playing a lot of kind of like solo Call of Duty. They just weren't playing together as well as they should have, and you can kind of see that in the overview here. Hydra was the only one on the Thieves to go positive. Ghosty really struggled, going negative 21, and they just weren't really meshing together super well, at least for the first half of this series. As you can see, like we said, 250 to 180 in the first map, and Hydra was the only one on the Thieves to go positive. Everybody else went negative. Scrap was the next closest one at -2. Then going into the Vault Search and Destroy, things did not look any better. I was thinking that maybe the search would look a little better for this team, but, during this second map, it just didn't look ideal. And the Thieves, again, nobody in the positive. They ended up only winning 1 round before taking it to the Protocol hardpoint. Now, despite the Thieves winning this map, they won at 250 to 237. They started off pretty slow, and it looked like this was going to be a hot 3-0 for the Thieves, and it was not looking ideal. But the Thieves had a very solid turnaround, I would say about midway through the map, where things just kind of started to click for them. And you can see that, despite them winning the map, nobody was in the positive. Like, nobody was outslaying anybody else. And Abizi and Celium on the side of FaZe were both double positive plus. So you would think that that would kind of work in FaZe's favor, but this is where I think the coaching of Thieves kind of comes into play, that Shane and Sender both know that these guys have a lot of talent, right? But if these players can play where kills don't really matter, like, they can all go negative and still win a map. But when they're all firing on all cylinders, they're going to outslay the other team. And, like, if they're playing fundamentally sound, it's going to be damn near impossible for teams to beat these guys. Obviously, FaZe and OpTic are going to be the best, like, opponents when it comes to that. But right now, this team was not really playing great. At least in this series, they weren't playing great. And they weren't, like, outslaying the other team. But towards the second hard point, this Protocol, as we see, they started to find their rhythm a little bit more. They started piecing things together a little bit more. And once they won that map, it was a pretty big comeback too, because they were down and they sparked a solid comeback where they got outslayed, but they were still able to win the map. I think that's when things kind of started to click for the team. They came into the Rewind hardpoint where they got the first 100-point club on the season against Atlanta FaZe, a team that, as we said, has played together for a while and doesn't typically get 100-point clubbed. So this was a map where Hydra went absolutely insane. As you can see, he was a +15, a 1.79 KD, 34 kills. I mean, the dude was gliding on the map. It seriously seemed like he had roller skates on and he was just getting to places faster than everybody else. And he was getting out of situations faster than anybody else. So he was just playing at an insane pace. And everybody on the Thieves besides Ghosty was positive. But Ghosty really didn't have, I would say, necessarily a ton of interaction, which we will see later that there's different times where different players kind of have more of the engagements. And this was just one of those series that Ghosty wasn't, getting as much as some of the other guys. But naturally, when you have a guy like Hydra going 34 and 19, it's going to be hard to find those engagements. Now, this is where Thieves really closed everything out. They go on to the red card search and destroy, where they ended up winning 6-1. Just looked a lot more dominant than obviously the Vault, where they got pretty much smoked. I will say throughout the tournament, Vault seemed to be one of the maps that the Thieves didn't necessarily play great on. So maybe that's going to end up being one of the maps that the Thieves just don't really love and they kind of set up as an auto veto, or it's going to be something that they really prioritize working on going down the line. Their next matchup, though, after beating Atlanta FaZe, was going up against OpTic Texas. Now, again, OpTic, same thing as FaZe. They are the same squad from last season. And this team just won champs. These guys know how to play alongside one another. And if you look at the whole series breakdown, once again, OpTic, they are all in the positive besides Kenny. And Kenny's only a -9. That's really not bad when you're talking about the entire series. But when you look at the side of Thieves, everybody is negative. So Thieves ended up only winning one map, as you can see, the Rewind, which is seeming to be the map that the Thieves play pretty well. And this is also a map that OpTic plays well too. So hardpoint wise for Rewind, this could be a favorite for the Thieves team. And the protocol we struggled in the first time playing it against Atlanta, but they were able to get that bounce back. This time around, they weren't able to do so. Shotzi played like an absolute madman. Basically, how I said Hydra had played on Rewind against FaZe is what Shotzi did against this Thieves team on Protocol. He was just gliding around the map, 36 and 16, 2.25 with a +20, plus minus. And then obviously you have Dashy with a +6, Pred +9. Kenny was the only one going negative at -4. And on the side of the Thieves, Envoy was the only one to even break even. Now, obviously, with all of this talent on the roster, a lot of people were kind of questioning where Envoy was going to fit into all of this, knowing that he's more the dirty work player. And I think this map kind of showed his capabilities. Now, obviously, like I said, they ended up losing 131 to 250, but there were a lot of plays that Envoy made that kind of kept the Thieves into this game. And I think if he's not on the team, some of that stuff doesn't really happen, or it doesn't get looked at as much. So Envoy really shined in this map, trying to make a lot of plays to keep the team alive. Yes, it didn't work out in the end, but again, they had kind of gone back to this form of, they kind of mentioned it after the first series against FaZe, was that they were kind of playing like as if they were in 8s, where each guy was kind of doing their own thing, and they just weren't meshing as well as they needed to be. And I think it continued on in the Vault Search and Destroy, which, once again, as we said, I think Vault is probably one of the maps that the Thieves are not playing super well right now. But I think once they get more reps, and if they kind of dedicate time to work on this map, I think they can get better at it. It's just kind of the situation right now. Again, Shotzi had a really good map with an 11.4 KD and +7 on that one. And then Dashy was 8 and 3, 2.67 KD. Hydra was the only one going positive with 8 and 7, which Hydra actually looked pretty solid in Search and Destroy this event. So I'm really excited to see how all that will play out once the season starts. Because even there were times where maybe he wasn't getting as many kills. It just seemed like he had a pretty solid impact on the map. And I'm excited to see how that will play off one another, because each guy is kind of having their own moments. And I think once the season starts, we'll kind of get more of a consistency out of the team. As we said, Rewind was the map that the Thieves were able to win, 250 to 200. Ghosty had a better map on this one, going +9 with a 1.36 KD. And Scrap almost dropped the 40 bomb, 39 and 29 with a 1.34 KD. As you can see, the ARs were kind of the guys who were getting everything done this go around, whereas last time it was more of Hydra. He had a little bit of a slower map. I mean, he still had a lot of engagements and was dealing damage, so, you can't complain about that. Envoy with a 0.76 KD on that one. But again, dirty work guy. You're not necessarily expecting him to go off and put up these crazy big numbers, but when he does, it's almost like a cherry on top kind of deal. We go into the map 4, where Thieves ended up falling in this series 250 to 145, again on Vault. Nobody on the side of Thieves was positive. Envoy struggled a little bit on this one. Scrap struggled a little bit on this one. Hydra had a lot of engagements, still went negative. And on the side of Texas, you had 2 guys dropping a 40 bomb, and then both Kenny and Shotzi with 30 plus kills apiece. Now, that's going to be really hard to beat. And, this ended up dropping the Thieves to losers bracket, where they were going to be set to face off against, it was FaZe or Cloud9, whoever ended up winning that series. And Cloud9 actually put up a big fight, so I give them a lot of credit. Shout out to Kremp, he was doing his thing. But FaZe ended up winning that series, bringing us back to face off against FaZe once again in the losers bracket final. Whoever would win this would go on to face OpTic in the grand final. And the Thieves started off a little slow again with the red card. They dropped that one 250 to 162. They were all negative once again, but not as bad this time. It seemed like the guys were competing a little bit more this go around. Just seemed like red card maybe wasn't their map. Moving on, we get to the Skyline S&D. This was, I want to say, our first time seeing Skyline be played on S&D that day. I could be wrong. It could have been played in a different series, but it definitely was the first time for the Thieves playing Skyline on Search and Destroy, and they looked pretty solid. We got to see Scrap pull out the sniper, and he was doing his thing. As you can see, he went 10-5. Ghosty was not far behind him, going 10-6, and then Hydra with a break even 8-8. Envoy was the only one negative at 5-10. But seeing Scrap with a sniper was pretty cool. He did a really good job, got a lot of picks with it, and still was able to play, I would say, fairly quick. He played his life pretty well. As you can see with the 10-5 stat line, he wasn't just going out getting a first blood and then getting traded out right away. He was able to be a little passive in that regard, and play his life a little bit. And the Thieves were able to steal this one with a 6-5 victory. This obviously would have been a little risky. If they were to lose, they would be back in a 2-0 deficit against FaZe, which, I mean, doing it once is already hard to overcome, but then to do it twice in the same day, there were a lot of delays in this tournament. That would have been a really tough thing to overcome twice in one day. So thankfully they were able to close this one out, and at that point I think the Thieves just kind of had their momentum on their side, and they were starting to click. They were starting to find their rhythm a little bit more than what they had in the first 2 series. Thieves were able to take the Skyline hardpoint 250 to 233. This was the first time seeing them play Skyline hardpoint. Again, Hydra had a fantastic map, going 45 and 31, and then everybody else on the Thieves was pretty solid. I would say Envoy, again, only one who had a little bit of a rougher one, going -11. But when you have Hydra, his sub duo dropping a +14, I mean, there's not going to be as much for everybody else to go around. You know what I mean? So Ghosty with 117 in the hill while still breaking even, and then Scrap was only -4, but he still had 30 kills, 34 deaths. So the guys were getting a lot of engagement. They were dealing a lot of damage, keeping the pace going, and it was very back and forth. Towards the end, FaZe was actually up in the last hard point, but Thieves were able to break in. I want to say it was Ghosty and Hydra combined both for really big 2 pieces to break the hill, forcing FaZe to spawn on the other side of the map, which gave Thieves just enough time to lock down the final hard point and close out the win. At that point, I want to say that's when FaZe was kind of a little burnt out. It was, as we said, it was a really long day, and after 2 tough losses like that back to back, I'm sure there was not a lot of momentum on their side, and the Thieves were able to 100-point club FaZe once again. As we said before, it's probably not often that we see FaZe getting 100-point clubbed, so the fact that the Thieves did it twice in the same day, I mean, this team is so exciting to watch, and I know they're going to continue to excite Thieves fans, and even just fans of Call of Duty, because I mean, if these guys are doing this type of stuff on little to no scrims, little to no practice, imagine what they do once they start working together on strategy and play calling and all that kind of stuff. These guys are going to be absolutely insane. And everybody on the Thieves this go around was positive, with Envoy being a +8, the best on the team when it comes to that. He started off really hot. I want to say he started off on like a 5 spree maybe. Hydra, I think, had like 2 or 3 5 sprees at one point. And the Thieves were able to close this one out convincingly, bringing us back to get our revenge against OpTic Texas. Now, with this being the grand finals, it was a best of 7 instead of a best of 5, and so the Thieves needed to win 4 maps in order to take this series. And as you can see from the overview, the Thieves looked a lot better than what they did in the first series, where they went completely negative. And this go around, everybody on the Thieves was positive, with Envoys being the lowest at a +2 overall. For map 1, we started off on Protocol, where in back-to-back maps of Protocol for the Thieves, they 100-point clubbed FaZe and OpTic. 300-point clubs on the day. I mean, that's crazy. To 100-point club anybody and to do it multiple times, and then to do it against FaZe and OpTic. As I said, this team's going to be very exciting. Everybody on the side of OpTic was negative, the worst one being Kenny with a -12. And then Hydra, again, another masterclass of a map with a 2.36 KD, 33 and 14. This guy is so much fun to watch, and I tweeted it out during the match, but I am just cheesing when I watch this guy play, knowing that he plays for the Thieves. It's so exciting, so fun. Good kickoff to start this grand finals here. Thieves were able to go on to the Skyline Search and Destroy, where we saw Scrap pull out the sniper once again. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if he pulled it out against FaZe, because I think FaZe wanted it to be GA'd, so I think they weren't using it. I don't know. It's a little confusing. That whole situation during the watch party was really confusing to me, but I know he pulled it out against OpTic. He did some solid things with that. 10 and 4, Hydra 11 and 6. This team just started to look really cohesive. Everybody was at least even or positive on the side of Thieves, and they just started to look a lot more comfortable. They were looking more loose. They weren't just solo channeling everything. It wasn't like they were playing 8s. They were playing as a unit, and it showed. They were able to take this one 6-4 with everybody besides Pred on the side of OpTic being negative. Map 3, we go back to Rewind, where the Thieves ended up closing out the tournament, not losing a single Rewind hardpoint. I don't want to speak too soon, but could this be another Gavutu type of situation for the Thieves? I would love to see it. Don't chalice on Rewind. Don't chalice on Gavutu. I think that would be a good thing to have for the Thieves. You have one map that it's like, hey, you don't want to play us on this map, because if you do, it's going to go bad for you. And I think so far from what we've seen, Rewind is the best looking one for that, because as I said before, OpTic is good at Rewind. They were the ones who played us the closest both times on that map, but Thieves were still able to close it out in a close one, 250-210. And this time around, everybody besides Pred was positive on the side of OpTic, with Shotzi being the best, 34 and 29. And then on the side of the Thieves, everybody played pretty even for the most part. Obviously, Envoy -5, Ghosty -4, but Scrap was only +4, and Hydra was break even completely. So again, another situation where the Thieves weren't necessarily outslaying the other team, but they were able to find the right way to play and making it a lot more difficult for OpTic to get into the hardpoint or to take advantage of the map. And I just think the longer the team plays together and the more they get coached to this, that's just going to improve. So they looked really solid when it came to the team play going into that map 3. But map 4 is where things kind of went a little downhill for us. The Skyline was where OpTic started to kind of bounce back a little bit. Pred had a really solid map going 30 and 20. Dashy had another solid map, 38 and 31. The pace for them was just set at a little higher mark than maybe the Thieves were ready for. That's what allowed them to take it 250-168. Envoy was +1, Scrap was +2. Hydra had a really tough one going -10, which is not something you see from him that often, but if it's something that happens here and there, everybody's human. It's going to happen sometimes. The upside with this new roster is that we have multiple guys who can kind of counteract that. And we saw it several times throughout this tournament as well, where it was like a duo would go off, and it was always somebody different. This time around, it happened to be Scrap and Envoy. Maybe they didn't like pop off a ton, but it was like they kept the team afloat. 30 and 28, 31 and 30. They were keeping the pace a little bit more. But this pushed us to the Game 5, where the Thieves were able to lock in and close out the series in a 6-3 fashion on Protocol. Envoy, Ghosty, Hydra, all playing really solid. Scrap, really not bad in the grand scheme of things, but Envoy was making a ton of plays on this map and was really kind of like, again, the dirty work guy that kind of pushed everything over the top. Had a 3K in the final round, I want to say, to close out the map and get us over that hump to win Kaysan's LAN tournament with 50K going into the Thieves' pockets. So the tournament took a long time. I watched party the whole thing. It was a 14-hour day. I know, I streamed for 14 hours. That's the longest I've ever streamed. It was a lot, but the fact that the Thieves were able to stay competitive, stay locked in, and close out the tournament being the 50K champs, I mean, it was great to see. As a Thieves fan, so excited. And to me, it's just another reason for why, if you are watching competitive Call of Duty, you should be tuning into the Thieves, because the Thieves are going to shock people this year. And I said it before, but I genuinely think this team is going to be even better than what people are expecting. And yes, it's the start of the year. Yes, it's early. I'm not trying to jump too far to conclusions, but you got to think FaZe and OpTic had maybe not reps on this game together, but they had reps in previous Call of Duties together. And there's a lot of things that are being worked out in this game, and I understand that. But the fact that the Thieves were able to not only compete, but to win the tournament with no experience together, whether it be on a different game or on this game, the only two guys that had experience together were Scrap and Envoy, and you basically reset the rest of the roster. So very exciting for this team. I'm excited to see how the rest of the season goes, and there's a lot to look forward to. With all that being said, if you guys enjoyed the video, please hit that like and subscribe button. I'm going to be doing some more watch parties on YouTube, since Call of Duty is still on YouTube. I can't do it on Twitch, unfortunately, but I've been getting all that stuff set up. So once the season starts to roll around, we will be doing watch parties, so keep an eye open for that. And yeah, I mean, that's going to do it for today's video. It was a great tournament. It was a lot of fun, despite the fact that it took a really long time. But yeah, for the future live streams and stuff like that, I hope to see you guys there. And if you're not there, be on the lookout for more videos like this, where we break down post tournaments or post matches, just kind of talking about how the Thieves did, and kind of what to look forward to for the next matches as well. Appreciate everybody who tuned in, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.